Joining me once again is Zero Hour senior correspondent at So Much More, Sonali Kolhatkar. So first of all, Sonali, as always, nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you too, Richard.
And what's on your mind today? Something about your governor in California, Gavin Newsom?
Yes, so I live in Southern California. Gavin Newsom, of course, has been our governor for a while. And he, this January, of course, was very much consumed by the fires that hit all of us in Southern California. I live near Altadena, and so was very much affected by the Eaton fire. You and I talked about it. Gavin Newsom has been seen for a while as one of the potential bright stars of the Democratic Party, especially after Kamala Harris lost the election last year. He was seen as the potential future of the party that come 2028, we could potentially see a presidential run from him, or maybe 2027 for the nomination of the Democratic Party. And indeed, last fall, after Kamala Harris lost, he made it a point to say that he was going to lead the resistance to the Trump White House, which sort of made sense and was believable because in Trump's first term, when he went after California, as he went after so many blue states, he basically blackmailed the state, right? Like, I will not give federal aid for X, Y, and Z unless you do this and that for me. And so his approach as president was highly partisan because he made no secret of being that sort of president. And we knew that he was going to be doing this as well during this term. And so Newsom said, well, we will lead the resistance against Trump. And for many Americans who are shocked by Trump's win and terrified by what was happening, the best hope has seemed to be to lie within blue states, governors of blue states taking the lead to say that where the federal government drops services or attacks workers, the state governments will step in. California is the largest state level economy in the US. It is the fifth largest economy in the world. It is the most populous state in the nation. And it has long been sort of, veering on the liberal side of the spectrum compared to the conservative side of the spectrum. I'm always sort of careful not to say California is the most liberal state in the nation, because there's unfortunately many exceptions to that. But, by and large, we sort of expect California to be better than the federal government. And then after Newsom, was busy with making sure that fire impacted areas got the relief they needed, he in February suddenly seems to have been taken over by another spirit. Like, people are genuinely asking, is Gavin Newsom okay? Because what he's done is he started a podcast. And his stated goal was that he wanted to understand the MAGA movement. Okay, fine. My initial reaction was, all right, let's see. Are you going to host debates? Are you going to take them on? Okay, maybe he's actually going to interview Trumpists. Fine. Is he going to debate them? No, what he has done in the 4 episodes that have been out is that he has interviewed one white supremacist after another, including Charlie Kirk, including Steve Bannon, and he has had congenial conversations with them, basically platforming them. And the biggest shock came right at the beginning when he interviewed Charlie Kirk and agreed with this overt white supremacist that transgender athletes were a problem, piling on against the most vulnerable population in the United States today, transgender people, in particular kids, young people who are athletes, saying that, yes, it was unfair for transgender kids to compete in athletics. And when questioned about it, his office has nothing to say about it. He has not made public appearances. He has not had press conferences. When media outlets have reached out to him for more explanation, he has basically just pointed to the podcast, or his people have pointed to the podcast. And everyone's wondering, is Gavin Newsom okay? So that's the upshot of what is going on with Gavin Newsom?
Well, it's really striking. As in the year leading up to the election, he went on Fox and debated Sean Hannity, and I thought strictly from a sort of sports kind of a bookie's view of it. Content aside, I thought he did very well. He was, affable and all that. But it seems as if he, like so many other Democrats, think that what's wrong with their party is a branding problem. It's so striking to me that well, if we talked a little bit less about trans kids and cancel culture, which is, I don't know, I don't think it's that big a thing anyway, but and kind of try to talk like mega people, we'd be okay. And yet, when you told me you wanted to talk about this, I looked up Newsom, and I saw a couple things. One is I saw him telling Bill Maher that the Democratic brand, quote unquote, is toxic. Again, the branding problem. Another is that he's waiving California's environmental laws to encourage utilities to rebuild faster, even though utilities may have played a role in certainly in exacerbating this problem. And then I see, for all this talk about sort of throwing trans kids and others under the bus, I see this press announcement from Governor Newsom's office. Early festivities soon underway as Governor Newsom and first partner, Siebel Newsom, launch statewide effort. Now, don't get me wrong. I think if people want to say first partner or partner instead of wife or husband or spouse, I could care less. But it strikes me that he's almost code switching so quickly he can't catch up with himself. And that seems to me to be the problem with so many Democrats, that they think is branding. On matters of substantive policy, they're afraid to take a stand, in this case, environmentally. And, they show one face to one population that's, oh, look how progressive I am, symbolically, and another face now to another audience saying, well, but I'm not really.
Well, I think what's really concerning is that he's saying to all Californians that, at least since February, and we're at the end of March now, this podcast is who I am now. And, first of all, you're running the fifth biggest economy in the nation. Seriously, stop with the podcast. But if you're going to do a podcast, actually talk about the things that you could be doing better instead of quoting the right. It is as though we don't have enough platforms for right. Elon Musk has bought Twitter and renamed it X. Mark Zuckerberg has bowed down and kissed Trump's ring. Every social media platform is offering a big, bullhorn to the right. And now Gavin Newsom is offering a platform as well. And it is, to me, not just necessarily him not figuring out who he is, but him actively thinking that this is the way for him to get ahead, right? Because he reminds me in many ways of Kamala Harris. And someone actually posted to, I believe it was Blue Sky, a description of Gavin Newsom that I think is just so perfect. He is a pick-me Democrat. He's one of those people, one of those Democrats who's constantly like, pick me to be the leader of the party. Please pick me to be like the guy who's going to solve all your problems. And when you are that kind of a politician, you will go where you think the winds are blowing, instead of the kind of politicians that most Americans are desperate for, which is, can we have somebody with principles who's putting our interests first and then single-mindedly going after them? And we do have one or two or handful of people like that, but they don't get as much coverage from the news media. And Gavin Newsom is basically here going, pick me, which is kind of what Kamala Harris did, right? When Kamala Harris changed her tune as well. Like, she was at one point, yes, defund the police, and we need to talk about criminal justice reform. And then suddenly, or even pro-Palestinian, or let's talk about Palestinian rights. And then as soon as it came time to go after the election, it was, what can I say that will get me the most votes or lose me the fewest votes? And of course, when they make those calculations, they always do them wrong because they're always missing the boat. So what Newsom is doing now, by alienating so many progressives who were in his camp, is he is taking a huge chance. He's saying, I'm going to risk this group of people who were backing me to go after this potential group of people who aren't really sure. And so what's happened now is Republicans are like, this guy can't be believed. He's disingenuous. And Democrats are like, what happened to this guy that we were backing? He's ended up losing both camps. Not that he had Republicans ever, right? And Republicans launched an impeachment effort against him, or not a recall effort against him that failed. And so I think Gavin Newsom's pick-me Democrat style is exposing him for who he is. And my response to this is, better we find out now in 2025 than put our political cachet and investment in him in 2027 when it's too late. So, thank you, Newsom, but no thank you.
Right. I love this pick me Democrat or pick me politician characterization, because, of course, what you're talking about is junior high, right? And there was always that one kid, the boy or girl, didn't matter, but there was one, pick me, pick me, pick me. And just thinking demographically, in a given class of 30 junior high schoolers, there was one kid like that and 29 kids who hated that kid. So that's not what you want in a president, right?
Exactly.
And what bothers me too about it is that it's all so superficial. And of course, the big vulnerability of Gavin Newsom all along has been that he easily seems superficial unless he says things of substance. But as you say, he's running, 1/5 of the entire national economy, governing over 1/5 of the U.S. population. As you say, would be the 5th largest country in the world. Even if you wanted to do a podcast, talk with thinkers who have different ideas about infrastructure or mass transit or all the things he could do. At one point during COVID, there was a rumor that, or he let it be known that he was thinking of manufacturing some pharmaceuticals at the state level. I thought, great, he has the clout to do it. It would be a great model. Never heard much about that. And instead, he's talking to people who are A, superficial, like himself, and B, superficial in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to inoculate the Democratic Party from caring about vulnerable people by showing he can pal around with, Steve Bannon's a white supremacist, Charlie Kirk probably too. I don't know him as well.
They're all problematic, and problematic as being kind. And, just to pick up on what you were saying with the things that California could be, right? California has a super majority of Democrats and has had a Democratic governor for a while now. Was it Schwarzenegger was basically the last Republican, I believe. We could have had so many nice things in California that we haven't had. Why doesn't California have single payer healthcare? Because Newsom has, and previous Democratic governors have watched their legislators waste their time passing single payer healthcare bills and then vetoed them at the very end. He vetoed this single-use plastics ban at the state level that legislators and advocates and environmentalists worked so hard on. Actually, I take it back. I'm sorry. He didn't veto it. He signed it into law in 2022. And then right before that law went into effect, he basically undermined it and told regulators to start over, saying that it was going to be too expensive. A waste of money, of time, of effort. There have been so many other ways in which California could have been so much more progressive than it is, because we've had that supermajority of Democrats, we've had the will in the state, and Newsom has ensured, and he's actually following in the footsteps of previous Democratic governors who've ensured that we stay, it's one of those things that Democrats do really well. When a Republican is in office, it's, you rail and rail and rail against how terrible they are. And as soon as you get into office, you actually don't do the things that you wish you could have done when you have power. When you have power, you don't use it. And so we could have had so many amazing things. And to me, the biggest lesson here is look at the contrast between what someone like Newsom is doing versus what 83-year-old Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is doing. Two-time presidential candidate who came closer than any Democratic socialist in recent memory came to the presidential nomination, who is attracting thousands, tens and tens of thousands of people to his Fighting Oligarchy tour that he's taking all over the country. I'm just actually editing for Yes Magazine a piece by one of our reporters of a massive event in Tucson, Arizona. He's going to swing states. He's also coming to LA April 12th. I won't be in town, so I'm going to miss it. He's touring with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Greg Casar and other Democratic younger politicians of color. And he's showing that when you speak in smart ways about resisting Trump and doing the things that we as Americans need, that's what resonates. But he's 83 and he's probably not going to run again. And it's just, we could have had Sanders, right? And then you can have a conversation about how the Biden machine undermined him and how Hillary Clinton's machine undermined him, et cetera. Anyway, but that is a perfect example of what Newsom could be.
And it's we can, at least I can conclude I'll give you the last word by saying, once again, it's style over substance in the Democratic Party, that it's culture wars. The culture wars would melt away if you gave people decent jobs and medical care and, an escape from this life of precarity. But somehow they think we have a brand. You don't have a branding problem. It's you.
Exactly. And that is the issue. It's like when we think about the only people who benefit from the so-called culture wars are billionaires, because the culture wars are there to distract you from your own pain and deprivation so that you can say, look, it's these scapegoats who are the problem, not us. And everyone's an aspiring billionaire, right? Even if you're a minimum wage worker in the country. And there are more and more reports now of Trump voters who are like, we thought he was going to cut those other people's jobs over there, not our jobs, like government workers who voted for Trump who are regretting it now. There's a great report in CNN about it. And there's so much potential for a progressive politician to say, okay, we told you so, but you know what? Let's be part of a big movement. Let's start shifting our values away from individualist billionaire well-being to collective liberation. How can we all, you will never win if you think that that it's okay to vote for someone who's going to hurt another person like you, because eventually it will hurt you. So the other thing that I want to say is that this Gavin Newsom is a perfect example and lesson for why we need to stop putting our faith in individual politicians. That democracy is not a popularity contest. Democracy is about mass movements that say, this is what we want, this is what we need. Are you willing to meet us in this moment and do what it takes to make our needs and desires a reality? And in many ways, that's kind of what Sanders does, because he's not a sexy politician. He's crotchety and he has a shtick that he beats over and over again because he believes it, right? Like he actually believes it. He's a no frills guy, because why do we need politicians with frills? And he just, he picks up on what people are feeling because he genuinely believes. He's been saying he's consistent. And so, but he's very rare. Democracy needs to be about how we create mass movements to make our demands, and then ask which politician is going to meet that demands, not say, oh, I thought I trusted Newsom. That is always a losing proposition. They will always let you down. Politicians and figures and individuals will always let you down. So we have to go in knowing that with eyes wide open.
So politicians might be the crest of the wave sometimes, but movements are the wave.
Movements always. And so how is the movement going to hold Newsom accountable? How is the movement going to send a really clear message to say to Newsom, oh, you're losing us, and therefore you will lose the next election. Bye, Gavin, basically.
Short version. Thank you. Next.
Exactly.
We depend on your support here at the 0 Hour, so please give whatever you can at any of the links you see on your screen. Thanks so much.